Hey, today, I actually want to talk about church a lot. I know a lot about church. I've spent my whole life in church, but I want to talk about our church today, Destiny Church. And I'm going to be really honest with you about some things and share some things that are just huge and wonderful. We moved in here a little over 2 years ago. And I will tell you that in some ways it has been the most difficult 2 years that we have experienced as a church. We got into this building. It happened so quickly that there was just a window of time. We got a deal that was incredible, and it still is an incredible deal. But we really didn't take the time, and I'll take responsibility for that. We didn't take the time to perform due diligence on what would be needed here. We knew we could fix up the place and make it look good, but what we did was took a building that was not designed for assembly use and turned it into that. And there are a whole lot of zoning changes that went into place that we just weren't expecting. One of those was a fire suppression system, and we came into this building with a joint lease with a Christian school. They were going to take the other side of the building. We were going to be here. So even as we discovered some of the things that would have to be done, we figured that, hey, between what we saved coming here and the help we'd get from the school, we could pull this off and it'll work okay. And we came in 2 years ago. The school was to come in a year ago, and our leases were tied to each other. For reasons that I think are valid in some ways for the school, they chose not to join us. And it really put our church in a very vulnerable predicament. For one thing, our leases were tied together, and if they didn't come in, our lease specifically stated that we would be kicked out, or could be. And so we had to immediately work through that problem. That was totally unexpected, and we had to work with the owner and make some things happen and get some assurances so that we could stay. And, it all worked out. We were able to stay here. However, then all of the fire suppression issues came down to us. We had no help. We were originally thinking we could build a firewall between the two sides of the building, which would have worked, except the owner did not want that. And when we've heard the reasons, we understood that. So that left us with one challenge, and that was one option, and that is to install a sprinkler system here. And so you guys had given about $30,000 to the firewall. So what we did is we used that, and we had access to borrow about $90,000 with that, and we got quotes and everything that came in for about $120,000 to put in this sprinkler system. And we didn't come back to you for any more money. We just trusted God to help us get through this, and but what started out as $120,000 has now become $180,000, and so that was unexpected. In the middle of all of this, as many of you know, we were struggling with our Winchester campus. We had planted that 5 years earlier, and it was just a dream and something that I still believe God has called us to do as a church, and that's to plant other churches. But because we had some leadership challenges there and some changes that were out of our control here, we ended up having to close that campus. And that was so painful. And our board and our pastors and staff, we spent so much time just praying about this place and about the Winchester campus, and we saw miracle after miracle happen. So what I want to tell you about right now are a few of the miracles that we've seen. We couldn't get we had a temporary certificate of occupancy so we could be in here, but we couldn't get a final certificate of occupancy until the sprinkler system was in. And we literally ran right down to the wire a day before we were going to lose our temporary certificate. We finally got everything approved, and there's a little white sign out there above the fire alarm in the lobby that costs $180,000. So when you go by, just touch it. You can feel the vibes coming off of that thing. But it was a miracle. So many people pitched in to help us. I just want to give a shout out to Barry White and to Steve Seneff and Mike Merritt. These guys carried us in this thing and really helped us get to where we needed to be. And I was so thankful to you guys for all you did. There were so many other people that helped outside of this. The electricians, man. You need a good electrician, you call me, because these guys, they did everything they could for us and at half the cost of what it should have been. It's just amazing. And I don't get any commission on that. I'm just saying, I know we got some good people there. But here's the cool thing. The difference between $120,000 and $180,000 is $60,000. And we didn't have to go anywhere for that because you guys have been so faithful in your giving. We've paid cash for everything above the money that we had. And what a blessing. What a blessing. We didn't want to come back and ask you for any more money. And you guys have just been faithful in your giving, and God has taken care of this. And here's my hope. I believe if our giving continues the way it's going, we're going to have the $90,000 paid off by the end of this year. And I am so excited about what God is doing. And I'll tell you, we're talking about money here, but as a pastor, when our finances are healthy, it tells me that ministry is healthy, that you are growing and you're becoming healthy because the Bible teaches that our heart and our money are tied together, and wherever your heart is, that's where your money goes. And so I look at that as great financial or great spiritual growth. Winchester, we thought we lost it, but it has a life of its own. And the campus still exists. Some people just said, hey, we're not going to stop showing up to Destiny. They just moved it to some guy's house. He's a former NFL player, and he has a big house. And so they have almost 40 people that meet there every week. And other people are trying to get in, and they won't let them in because there's too many people in the house. So this guy's building a barn with HVAC. That's my kind of barn. Every horse would love this. And they're moving into the barn so they can have more people. They're taking care of, I think it's 40 children with backpack buddies right now. And the thing is moving. It's happening. So they listen to our sermons a week behind, and so they'll always be behind, But it's amazing what God is doing there. And we should have done this in the first place. It didn't cost us a thing, and we should have done that. I don't know what we were thinking. Anyway, we have grown here. We have grown numerically. We've had more salvations the first 7-8 months of this year, I think, than any stretch in our history before. We've had probably close to 60 people get saved between Sunday mornings, our youth ministry, which has been incredible, our kids ministry, and our prayer ministry that meets on Friday mornings. I mean, we've had salvation after salvation in all of these arenas. Baptisms have grown. We typically only did baptisms once a year. Then we moved it to twice a year. Now it's 4 times this year. Growth Track, Growth Track is off the charts. It's amazing. We have more life groups now than ever before, more people in them. Our dream teams are great. The spiritual growth is awesome. Our Friday prayer is so amazing, and so much is happening there. God is doing so much in this environment, and it has just been just incredible to watch the people who are coming and finding freedom in Jesus Christ through the work that prayer ministry does, which that group is tied directly to DC Cares, and we're helping some people who are just really struggling in life, and it's just amazing. In just a couple of weeks, as soon as we can figure out a place to do this, we're going to have several people from the prayer team meeting in a room in this building every week praying the entire time that we're having service here, because they're just going to be praying for God's Spirit to move in an incredible way in our services. And if you want to join the prayer team and be part of that, please let us know. Sign up on the DC Connect card, because we believe that it takes God's Spirit to change people, and we want His presence with us. And so a lot of great things are happening. But I want to say this, that God isn't really into our church as much as we would like to think He is, and at least in the way that we think of it, because we have these human tendencies. We tend to get caught up in our programs and our ideas and our goals, and a lot of times they are different than what Christ might have for His church. You know, Jesus has a very well-defined mission. He has a very well-defined idea of what His church needs to look like, because truly this isn't our church, it's His. And it was founded in Matthew chapter 16, and He was looking out, Jesus was looking out over a sea of lost people, and He said, it's in the middle of this pain, in the middle of this sin, in the middle of all this mess, that I will build my church. And His mission and His vision has not changed, but many times it's different than our desires. In Proverbs 29:18, it says, if people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves. But when they attend to what He reveals, they are most blessed. So I want you to get your notes, and I want you to write this in your notes. I'm going to start off with this statement. It is God's will for Destiny Church to grow. It is God's will for Destiny Church to grow. And I want to take a moment and just share with you our mission and just fill in the blanks on this. You're going to see this and hear this a lot, because this is who we are. This is what we're going to be doing, what we've been doing. This is our dream for you, our dream for every person who walks in the doors, who connects with a life group, who is part of our DC Care ministry, every person who is part of Destiny. Our dream for you is, number one, we want you to know God. Not know about Him, but know Him. Not know about who He is, but have a personal relationship with Him, where He is the Lord of your life. He's guiding your life. We want you to find freedom. We know that you can invite Christ into your life, and He saves you, and He does tremendous work in you, but there is also a lot of things that you've been living out in your life that need to change. And those always don't disappear when you ask Christ into your heart. Sometimes we have to go through certain processes and experience things. It's called discipleship, and God changes us, and He uses situations to work in our lives, and through that we find freedom from our sin. I often refer to this, God brought the Israelites out of Egypt, but then He spent more than 40 years trying to get Egypt out of the Israelites, and that's a picture of us. We want you to discover your purpose. Why are you here? Why do you exist? What is it that God has created for you to become and to do? And then finally, we want you to make a difference in the world. We want you to make a difference in your home, in your family, and in our church, and in our community, in the nation, and the world. So today, with all of this, I want to give you our passage scripture today. It's Luke chapter 15. It is my favorite chapter in the book of the Bible, just because of who I am and what I do and what God has called me to. And so I'm going to share it with you today. I'm going to give you 3 words to write in your notes here. It's kind of the theme of Luke 15. It's 3 words, and then I'm going to start reading this. The 3 words are this: lost, found, and rejoice. There are 3 stories here. Each one of them has the same theme: lost, found, and rejoice. So let me start off here in chapter 15, verse 1. It says, tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. Now this made the Pharisees were the church people, the religious people. This made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that He was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. Now, there's something you need to understand. There's a principle here. Jesus attracts sinners. Jesus attracts sinners. Pharisees, churchy people, too churchy, repel sinners. Think about that. Think about how that's played out in life. Think about the reputation that perhaps the church, the body of Christ, has in our world. Now, I know there is a true line of demarcation. There is life and there is death. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our attitudes, the way we live. Jesus attracts sinners. Pharisees repel them. So Jesus is going to give us three pictures here. You may not know this. I found this out on the wealth of information that's available on Google. This is called a triptych. A triptych is, you have them in your home. There are three picture frames attached to each other. And a true triptych is supposed to tell a story. So you may have pictures in your triptychs that don't tell a story. Well, they're just not a triptych. It's bad. But here are the three stories. We've got a sheep. Yeah. We have a coin. And we've got a son. These are the three stories. So let's take a look at the first one. Jesus told them a story. In other words, these guys are all complaining because sinners like him. So Jesus told them this story. And by the way, let me just say this. This is the only passage of Scripture where Jesus reiterates the same thing 3 different times. He wants us to understand this. He told them a story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me because I have found my lost sheep." In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. Now, this is a totally Jewish thing. Typically, the shepherds that Jesus was talking about here, typically they don't own the sheep. They are hired by wealthy farmers, or more what would you call it? More normal situation was that there would be a co-op of citizens, and they would invest in sheep, and then they would hire some shepherds to take care of their community sheep. And so they were these shepherds didn't go around losing sheep. That wasn't what what you're supposed to do. Now, you would think, hey, 99% is not a bad return. But that's not how it worked. You didn't do that. And many times, shepherds would risk their lives to go save the sheep. And so when Jesus told this, he knew his audience. He knew what they knew. He knew how they thought. And so he was telling them something that they totally understood. Here's the principle. Write this down. The 99 were important. I want you to get this. This is so important to you. The 99 were important. The one was of great concern. The 99 were important, but the one was of great concern. It was May of 2001, and I was graduating from grad school at Regent University in Virginia Beach, and we had gone to Virginia Beach to my graduation. And for some of you, you've heard this story. It was so hot. It was one of those extremely hot days in May, and it was the morning before the graduation. So Pam and I had Rachel, Ryan, and Rob with us, and we went to the beach. We decided, hey, we'll let the kids swim. It's warm enough. The water would still be cold, but it'd be a great time for them. And so I don't know if you've been to Virginia Beach, but there's a boardwalk in the main area, and then there's the beach, which is rather long, but you could stand on these steps before you get to the beach and hang out and watch everything that's going on. So Pam and I didn't have anything to go swimming in, so we just stood, and neither did the kids. They just jumped in with their clothes, and we were standing on the steps, and we're watching them, and we're talking about things, probably destiny, because, we had just launched a church, and it seemed like that was all I was talking about back then. But for whatever reason, we lost our son, Robert. He disappeared. And I looked up, and I said, Pam, where's Robert? She goes, I don't know. He was with Rachel and Ryan. Well, where is he? And we looked, and he wasn't anywhere to be found. And there were some other people out in the water, some people on the beach. And I ran down, and I said, Rachel, where's Robert? And I don't know. He was just here. And I freaked. I mean, my kids will tell you I did that throughout their lifetime. I freaked. I jumped in the water with my clothes. I'm screaming, Robert, Robert. I'm yelling at people I don't know, help me, help me. Our son is lost. I'm afraid he's drowned. Help me. Robert, Robert. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, as fear and panic settled in, and I thought, we've lost him. My God, we've lost our son. And then Rachel goes, there he is. And he was way down the beach. He'd been chasing some dog, and he's just a little guy, right? He was just way, way down there. And, man, I ran down, and I screamed, and I grabbed him. I love you. He'll never get over that. He was scarred for life. It was. Our son was lost. Now he was found. If one of the people standing around said, hey, don't worry about it. You got 3 others, what? I'd have killed him. Or our kids would say, hey, Daddy, I want something to eat. I'd have thrown them out in the ocean because it was intense. It was a lost son. And Jesus is talking to us. He's making sure we don't have a Pharisee-type heart. He is making sure that we see that the lost is of great concern. We often say Sunday mornings are really about lost people more than anything else. We want lost people to come. We want lost people to hear the message of Christ. We want to take that message out. Many of you, a majority of this church, you were lost before destiny. And it's because of this vision that you're here today. And it has changed your lives. And we should never be comfortable and think that 99 is okay. Lost people are of great concern to Jesus. I'll tell you one other short story. We were probably a year into this church. And someone who was a board member called me up and said, we want to take you out to lunch. We want to share something with you. And I always, I'm afraid of what that means. I went to lunch, and this couple sat there, and they'd been with us from almost the very beginning. They'd been believers for a long time. And they said, hey, we're going to be leaving Destiny. And I was rather shocked. I mean, this is a board member and his wife. And I was like, why? And his response was, we don't want our children around children of lost people. And I wasn't very pastoral when they said that. I didn't say, I'm so sorry. I really kind of blasted them. I said, I know you. I know where you come from. You were lost. Really? Really? It just, and I'd have kicked them out if they hadn't quit, just because. That's not right. Our heart needs to be for lost people. Let's read on before I tell you more stories. That would not be good. Or suppose a woman who has 10 silver coins and loses one, won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she will call in her friends and neighbors and say, rejoice with me because I have found my lost coin. In the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels, even when one sinner repents. Now, this story is really something related to Jewish culture. You see, a young married woman, the sign that she was married was a headdress that she wore, and it had 10 coins connected, linked together by a small chain. And this was really important. And these young ladies would scrape and save and work to have this coin arrangement together by the time they got married. And so losing one of these coins was a big deal to this bride, this wife. And so she was desperate. It was hard for me to understand this until I met Grace, actually till Grace married our son Ryan. Grace is our daughter-in-law, and she is my favorite daughter-in-law. She's the only one I have. And she actually runs the church. We tell people that because she's got a huge administrative gift, and you are blessed by her all the time, whether you know it or not. But our son bought her a really nice diamond ring. In fact, she'll be happy to show it to you after service. She's very proud of this ring. He made me look really bad. And I keep telling my wife, look, it's not what's on her finger that counts, it's what's in my heart, right? And she's starting to not buy that anymore. So they may have put me in a predicament. But this Grace's ring is a big old diamond and a bunch of little baby diamonds all around it. And I swear I've caught her like 20 times counting and touching all the little stones to make sure they're all there. And if she thinks one is loose, she runs she's been to the jeweler, like a lot of times. Can check if something's loose. Can you see something loose here? Yeah, it's a screw. And I've been saving that. But she wants to make sure that everything's there. And it's because it's important to her. And that's what this lady felt. There's a principle with this, and I want to give it to you. The principle is this: a lost coin is a sign of lost significance. It means two things. One thing is this: something is out of place. The coin belonged on a chain. A lost person belongs in a relationship with Jesus Christ. So something's missing. And then something is out of service. A lost coin has no value to its owner. A lost person has no way to be personally fulfilled. If you are lost, you cannot live a fulfilled life. If you don't have a relationship with Christ, you were created to be that person. You were created to be a child of the Father, to have His gifts poured out on you so that you could live a life that is fulfilling, a life of destiny, a life of purpose. And if you are lost, you are out of service. You're not doing what you were designed to be. In both of these parables, Jesus is showing us something extremely important. This was a shock to the Pharisees. For the first time they heard this, that Jesus is searching for lost people. You see, the Pharisees always thought they're the ones that had to do the searching. They're the ones that had to do all this stuff. But this was alarming to them that God pursues people. And I just want to say today, if you're not a believer, if you're not in relationship with Christ, Jesus is searching for you. He is calling you. He wants you to come to Him. He wants you to give your life to Him so that He can give you value and He can give you fulfillment, give you purpose in your life. I want to read the last story. This one's different. The parable of the lost son. To illustrate the point further, Jesus told them this story. A man had 2 sons. The younger son told the father, "I want my share of your estate now before you die." In other words, I wish you were dead, but you're not. So I want my money now. Very selfish. So his father agreed to divide the wealth between his sons. A few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land. Some of your translation would say a far country. What this is talking about is our hearts. We've moved away from the Father, and our heart has gone to a distant land, a far country. It can be found in our heart. So this is the person who lived in relationship with the Father and who walked away. And there he wasted all his money in wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land. Circumstances now work against us. And he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him into the fields to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him. But no one gave him anything. When he finally came to his senses, when he remembered his father, he said to himself, "At home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, 'Father, I've sinned against both heaven and you, and I'm no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant.' So he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I'm no longer worthy of being called your son.' But his father said to the servants, 'Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet, and kill the calf we've been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast, for this son of mine was dead, and now he is found.' So the party began." A couple things I want you to see here. First of all, this son did the most horrible thing that he could have done in a Jewish culture. Not only did he feed the pigs, he ate with them. You would have looked at him, and you wouldn't be able to tell him from one of the pigs. But when the father brought him in, he didn't treat him as a pig. He said, "He's not a pig, he's my son. He's not a loser, he's my son. He is a sinner who has come home." Some of you have walked away from God. You said, "Give me what's mine, I'm out of here. I don't want anything to do with this." And you've lived your life, and now you're broken, or you try to come back and you feel so much shame. And Jesus is saying, "You're not a pig. You're not a loser. You're my son. You're my daughter." Abraham Lincoln was once asked after the Civil War, "How are you going to treat the politicians? How are you going to treat the Confederate soldiers?" And he said, "I'm going to treat them as if they never left." A beautiful picture of what this story says about Jesus. You see, this isn't about how a sinner gets saved. It's about a son who has left and is able to return to his father. By Mosaic law, this son, could have been stoned to death because he disrespected his father. They could have called the elders together and said, "Here's what he did," and they could have stoned him. But Jesus said, "I love them. I want you to come home." Now, there's something that had changed in the heart of the son. Remember, when he left, he said, "Give me." When he came back, he said, "Make me." And that's what I want you to remember today. For those of you who, man, you just kind of come back to the edges. You haven't really jumped into a relationship with Christ. You've been holding back, and some of it might be shame or guilt, or you just been reticent. The Father's saying, "Come home. Come home. I will treat you as if you never left. I will love you. I forgive you. I will give you life. I will help you find freedom and find your purpose so that you can make a difference in your life." And I want to close with this last little section here. Verse 25, "Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. When he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house, and he asked one of the servants what was going on. 'Your brother is back,' he was told, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf. We're celebrating because of his safe return.' Well, the older brother was angry. His father came out when the son wouldn't come in and begged him to, but he said, 'All these years I've slaved for you. I've never once refused to do a single thing you told me to, and in all the time you never gave me even one goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf. His father said to him, look, dear son, you've always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, and now he is found. That's the end of the story. We don't know what happened after that. But we know this, the older brother never saw the lost son. He only saw his own situation. He had no love or concern for his brother. He was proud of being a good son, dutiful, but he lost sight of the fact that he would have nothing if it weren't for the Father. And that's where I want to leave this today with you, our church, for those of you who are believers, those of you who are part of Destiny Church and want to be part of our mission. It's about seeing the lost. One time, Pam and I were in North Carolina visiting some of her family, and we left late at night, and we're traveling in a minivan, a vehicle that I swore I would never own. And it was, once again, it was her and me and Rachel and Ryan and Rob, and it had to be like 1 or 2 in the morning. It was pouring down the rain, and it was a terrible storm, so dark outside. And we were running low on fuel, and we finally found a gas station, and I pulled in, and Rachel was in the very back. She was asleep. The 2 boys were having to go to the bathroom, and then Pam had her first cell phone. And so even at this late hour, she's calling all her family and friends, and she is the most social person in the world, and she'll be calling many of you later today. She's at her high school, well, she was at her high school reunion, and she had a hangover, can't come today. So, no, that's not true. That's not true. She's taking a friend back to North Carolina and coming back, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. So anyway, we pulled into this gas station, and I get out, and I'm filling the car up with gas. The boys run inside to go to the bathroom, which that really shouldn't have happened. They're too small at that time to be left to themselves, and Rachel's sleeping, and Pam's on her phone. And so I fill the car up, and then I run into the bathroom, make sure that everything is in one piece in the boys' bathroom, get the boys and wash hands, and we come out, and we get in the van, and we take off. And we had to pull out of the gas station, and it was lightning and raining, and we pulled out, and it was a long road, and we came up to the main highway. And just when we were coming up to the main highway to turn, the lightning struck, and in on my left side, I saw something, and it just kind of alerted me. I looked over, and across through this field, there was a little kid running. And I'm like, my God, there's a little kid out there, Pam. And then I looked again, I said, it's Rachel. And I threw open the car door, I left it in drive, and I had to jump back in and put it in, and I go out, and she runs across the field, and she's soaking wet, and I'm soaking wet, and I hug her, and I throw her in the van, and then I get in, and I go out on the main highway, and then I just had to pull over because I was shaking so much, and I was so mad at anything. I was mad at the boys. Why did you have to go to the bathroom? This would have never happened. I was mad at Pam. Why are you on the phone? I was mad at me. And then I just sat there, and there's a memory that replays in my mind over and over and over again. Never leaves me. And that is, what would have happened if I hadn't seen her? Because I know we would have driven all the way to Virginia, all the way home, and she'd be standing out there or at some gas station or worse, and we wouldn't know it till we got home. She didn't know her mother's new cell phone number. What if I had not seen her? And to this day, it makes me shudder. I just want you to feel the pain, because that's how God feels about his children. What if we don't see them? What if we don't see them? What if somebody like Shirley falls along the wayside? What if one of our own children or our parents or our neighbors, what if we don't see them? What happens? That's our vision. That's why we're here today. I want to close with this. At some point, we've all found ourselves enslaved to sin. Satan has done everything he can to destroy us, and we are so blessed to be redeemed as a church. But if you're here today and you're lost, I want to tell you something. The reason our church exists is because of you. There's no other reason for us to have started this other than to reach lost people for Christ and turn them into disciples. That's what Jesus told us to do. If you've walked away from God, you feel like you just can't come back, I want to tell you that this is the greatest chapter in the Bible for you, because Jesus goes to all this length to say, come home. We're going to sing a song that talks about God's gift to us, and then we're going to close today. And if you need to come home to Christ, I want you to think about that as these guys sing, and we're going to pray in a moment and be finished. I want to close today just giving those of you who need to begin or restore a relationship with Jesus Christ the opportunity to do that. And it's just a matter of you saying yes to Him. Jesus shared His very heart in these passages of Scripture, these three stories. He says we all matter, but you are of great concern. And so today, if that's you, I want you to make this decision. I want you to give your life to Christ because you are of great concern. So I'm going to pray. You pray with me. And take this step toward Him. Dear Jesus, I come to you, seeing today how much you love me, how much you care for me. I have lived being in charge of my own way, my own life, figuring out things myself. I'm out of place and I'm out of service. And so today, I declare that I am a child of Jesus Christ. I give my life to you. I come home to you. I pray that you would forgive me of my sins, that you come into my heart. Lord, I give you my life. In Jesus' name, amen.